Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this special Halloween edition of Topic UFO. Hope you're having a happy Halloween out there. Uh, when I was looking for a guest for tonight's show, I came across tonight's guest, and she was perfect for the show. So, last minute, I kind of reached out to her, and she was so nice to agree to come do the show tonight. Her name is Heidi Hollis, and she has a book entitled The Secret War, a True Story about a Real Alien War and Shadow People. She is world-renowned expert and coined the phrase or term shadow people. And I desperately want to talk to her about these shadow people because the earliest memory I have of fear, I was 5 years old, so it was almost 50 years ago. I was 5 years old. I had gotten up in the middle of the night. I'd gone into the kitchen, I think, to get a drink of water. And as I was walking back down the hallway to my bedroom, I had to pass a bathroom on my right. And the door was ajar, slightly open, and the door was made out of a light veneer type wood. And on this door was the shadow of some type of human being. It looked to me. And I literally let out a shriek that woke up the entire house. Um, I don't know if that's what a shadow person is, but I can tell you 50 years and I still remember it like it was yesterday. So let's just bring her on, shall we? Her name is Heidi Hollis. Heidi, are you out there, ma'am?
I sure am. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thanks for coming on with such short notice. Um, Heidi, you've written this book, The Secret War, a true story about a real alien war and shadow people. You've coined this term, uh, shadow people, I believe in back in 1997. Is that true?
Yes. Mhm.
How did
And
this start, and what is a shadow person?
well, in honesty, all honesty, 1997 was when I wrote the book, but I spoke of shadow people a few years prior to that, quite a few years actually. So it's shadow people are essentially what you spoke about. When my stomach dropped when I heard you share your story there, because it's that knowing that something is out of the ordinary of a shadow that gives you horror and terror that stays with you for a lifetime, that lets you know that you just saw something very dark, very evil.
Wow.
Shadow people take on various forms. So this one that you saw, I'm curious if it looked more like a person or if it looked more like the head and shoulder looking shadow people that look like they don't have a neck. So
It
I'm curious which one you saw.
it was the head and shoulders type.
Oh yeah, that's them. Yeah, that's indeed them. For people that want to see what we're talking about, my website has the different drawings of the different types of shadow people.
Oh,
Um,
I'll show
yeah,
those.
so yeah, it's HeidiHollis.com. I've got them all listed on there. So the head and shoulder shadow is a big hulking type looking mass that looks kind of like a person. Don't really see legs, but a head looks like it's directly connected to some rounded shoulders, and absolutely terrorizing to see.
I'm kind of shaken right now, just knowing that I've got some confirmation after 50 years.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so I take it you experienced this uh, sometime in your life,
Oh,
early
oh,
on, or
sometime and ongoing, and yes, indeed. The first one that I'm certain that I experienced and that I actually saw following a friend of mine, that just really shook the core of me because it was broad daylight. We were walking along. I was living down in Iowa, and my friend and I were walking to her uncle's house, and we saw this I saw this black mass jump from behind a bush and like go behind a tree, and I'm like, what is that? Did I just see that? It was kind of off of my peripheral vision. I let it go, and then I saw it happen again and again all along our time that we walked to her uncle's house, and again, broad daylight. And when we went to come back to her house that I was staying at, this thing followed all the way back, doing the same thing. And by the time we reached her home, I was like just beside myself. And I'm like, look, I don't know what I just saw. And I grabbed a piece of paper and pen, and I drew the head and shoulder shadow guy. And I'm like, I just saw this black thing, following us. And I show it to her, and I'm thinking she's going to laugh. And she looks at it and goes, oh, that thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's been following me since I was a kid. And I was floored, just floored. And I'm like, and she goes to her dad, hey, Dad, Heidi saw that thing again. He's like, oh, is he back? It was just one of those things. And I had to go upstairs to the second floor to grab something. And it was a second floor, like attic, like bedroom. And I didn't turn the lights on because, it was still broad daylight, and there's a lot of sunlight coming in my room. But the first room you go into is just pitch black. So I grabbed what I needed out of my room, turned around to leave, and that big black mass, this head and shoulder thing, was hulking over me. I mean, he had to be close to 10 feet tall or something. He was humongous. And I just felt like it wanted to kill me. That's outright what I felt. Felt threatened.
Now, when you saw this thing, now when I saw mine, it was more two-dimensional on like a flat surface of the door. Now, when the things that you saw, were they more three-dimensional type of mass or what?
Well, I know it wasn't against the wall. It was away from the wall. It was away from the door. But to say I could look around it, no, I couldn't. It was very physical, but you could still kind of see through it, but not really. It was really dense, very dense.
Mm-hmm.
And it was absolutely terrorizing. And this one had the red eyes, so he was horrifying to see. I can't even explain to people that kind of terror. And knowing this thing, it's so strange to say that your soul is screaming, it wants to kill me.
Yeah.
That's what I felt. And I knew if I ran, it was going to get me. I knew if I swung at this thing, it was going to get me. So it's like something told me, Heidi, say a prayer and keep walking towards the door. Because if I stayed there, I was going to pass out and it was going to do something to me. So I had to walk right through it.
Uh,
Just walked right through it. Yeah, just terrifying.
so, I mean, when you first saw it, is it almost like a paralyzing fear for just a moment, and while you kind of take this thing in? Uh,
Oh, you could say that. I mean, by the time I got to the top of the stairs, my legs were just jello. Like I couldn't take a step down. I kind of fumbled and boink. I just kind of landed at the bottom of the stairs. My friend hears the tumbling and goes to the door and opens it, and I'm like, I could barely speak, and I'm like, it's up there. I was just telling her it's upstairs, and oh my gosh, it was so horrifying, absolutely horrifying. And I thought that was the end of it. I seen this thing. It seemed to get angry that I saw it and spoke about it, so it came to intimidate me. But my experiences changed. They changed into, I started having nightmares of giant shadow spiders in my room, crawling on me, falling from the ceiling. I thought they were dreams, but I was waking up to them still there. And I think those were the most horrifying for me because, boy, when I see a spider in a room, I'm ready to run or squish it. I don't know. But and then to see something the size of, I don't know, your car in your house, it was horrifying to see.
wow. And
Yeah.
so this, whatever it is, phenomenon, ghost thing, has continued, I guess, throughout your life.
It has, and it's changed also because like I was a college student. I didn't know what I was dealing with. I had no idea. I grew up in a haunted house. I knew what ghosts looked like. Well, these didn't look like ghosts. These didn't feel as passive as ghosts. And I also, oddly enough, experienced seeing UFOs. And this is an incident that comes to mind that helped me kind of launch in my head what was going on here. But it took some time still, though. So I was living alone, and it was the middle of the night when I heard a noise in my apartment. And I didn't, I'm thinking somebody broke in. I just react. I jump up and I'm like, what's going on here? And my phone wasn't near me. I go into my living room like ready to run or something, and lo and behold, there were two small childlike creatures in my living room, something like out of the movies, gray alien beings. They
Uh,
didn't feel intimidating to me, and I'm like, get out of Dodge, what is this, and I kind of walked up to the two of them and walked between them, and they were going through my bookshelf, and I said, who are you? What are you doing here? And they looked up at me, and they had this look on their face, and they look like the typical grays, the big eyes and two slits for a nose and a slit for the mouth, but the mouth was in a circle, like oh crap, she's awake. and,
I think she
and
saw us.
yeah, I think she did. And I'm like, they have my stuff in their hands, and I took the stuff out of their hands. I'm like, put that down. What are you doing here? And to make a long story short, I heard more noise behind me. There were two more in my closet, two more in my kitchen, two more in my bathroom, and it was the craziest thing. I didn't get abducted. I was able to kind of get rid of these things, and nearly the next day, lo and behold, Head and Shoulder Shadow comes knocking, and I'm like, what is going on? I see aliens for the first time in my life, and this thing that used to follow my friend is back, and it was so strange to me. And I'm like, aliens, shadow people, aliens, shadow people. I don't get it. I moved into a bigger apartment in the same apartment building, and I got a roommate. And I warned her about the stuff that I'd experienced. Like, look, I don't know, but I've dealt with some odd things. And she's like, oh, she was super, super religious. She was
Mm,
Pentecostal, and she's like, oh, your demons won't mess with me. Don't talk to me about your alien crap. I'm like, oh gosh, okay, whatever. That's
hmm
typical of my friends. They don't want to talk about it unless they're making fun of it, which is all good. I'm able to laugh at most things. So it was strange. Here she's so skeptical about the topic, and some time had passed. I'd say over a little over a year or so that we were roommates, and she had an encounter with an alien being that was more of the positive angle of things that started to communicate with her about what was going on with the shadow people phenomenon that was ongoing even in that apartment that I shared with her. And it was so mind-blowing because I couldn't understand what I was dealing with. I'm seeing these things shape-shift into different things and just crawling all over and knocking things over, hiding things, and it was so bizarre. And then to have an alien come into to my skeptical friend's life and show itself. I mean, showed itself to myself and her to let us know that it was a real thing. And this is part of the revelation that I put in this book, The Secret War, in this being talking about what these shadow people are, why I had seen this thing come so immediately after these gray alien beings tried to grab me. They essentially sent their boss in. They couldn't take down the girl that they were meant to get, and I mean, you can't imagine. I'm just was a college student trying to get through a very difficult program as to be a therapist, and oh my goodness, it was just mind blowing. But I could only deny it for so long. I had a friend sitting there right next to me saying, "Oh no, you don't get to deny that. I saw it too. You better admit that you saw." Okay, it's like all right. And I
Well,
had friends that would come over to watch too. It was amazing.
I have to ask you, when you saw the two gray type aliens, you were alone at the time, right?
I was. There were about 9 of them total, so.
And I mean, it sounds like you took this pretty matter of factly. I mean, were you Were you just like, hey guys, or I mean, I would have been, I think I would be just freaking out completely.
I that's what a lot of people say, and I was more afraid I was being robbed and somebody was there to kill me, only to see these child-sized things with these big bulbous heads, and they're almost comical looking. And then to walk up to them, they look like balloon heads. That's what they look like.
Hmm.
And then to see like a perfect little O for a mouth, like oh, just shock. I was like, what are you guys doing here? What's going on? And it wasn't like it was weird that I wasn't like, oh, terrified. I had my adrenaline pumping, like, I'm about to die. Somebody's in my place. And what? They're kids? No. They're creatures? No. Oh, there's two more over here. Oh, there's two more over there. And what was frustrating to me is they weren't answering me because I'm like, I go, I'll back up a bit. I see these two. I hear a noise behind me. There's two in my walk-in closet just off from my living room. And then I hear some scrambling going through my drawers and cabinets in my kitchen. I go in there, and there's two more there. And now it's in the nighttime, but the street lights are lighting things up. I could see them quite clear. And my bathroom door is closed and the light is on. And I'm like, oh no, this isn't happening. So I just kind of flung the bathroom door open. And now I'm somebody who's lived in a haunted house. I've been terrorized and terrified before, and I think it kind of built up some thick skin in me. And I dealt with odd things, but this is way beyond anything. So I flung the bathroom door open. There was a being, a gray being that was behind the bathroom door, and of course I didn't know that. And so when I flung the door open, it knocked this one down to the floor. And there was another one grabbing something off the back of my toilet. Now all of the grays were naked except for this one that was grabbing something off the back of my toilet. And so this one had suspenders on, and now I'm not a violent person, all right?
Then
Just
wait,
to
you
put that
saw
out
a
there.
gray wearing suspenders.
This was not. Well, I'll tell you. I grabbed this little guy by his suspenders, and I picked him up. And yes, I am known as a lady who choked an alien. I didn't really choke him, but I mean, I'm asking all of them, who are you? What are you doing here? And they're just spinning around with their mouths open, and I'm like, what's going on here? And they're just silent and frozen, looking at me like big giant woman going to kill us. And this one, I just grabbed it, and I'm like, oh, I got something to hold on to. And I'm like, with every word, I said, who are you and what are you doing here, to the one that I was holding. And the one that got knocked to the floor put his hands up like to block me, like I was going to step on him or something. And I heard him say, I'm your nephew. I'm your nephew. And I turned my attention to look at this thing. And I am not kidding you when I say he shape-shifted into my nephew in a baby blue suit and afro. And I said, you're not my nephew. You look like him when he was 10. He's 20-something now. We grew up together. And I'm just like, what is going on here? And I turned my attention back to the one that I was holding in my hands with the suspenders, and this thing started shaking so abnormally, like a robot shorting out. And when I looked at it more clearly, this one did not look like the others. This one had a bulbous head. He was flesh-colored. He had freckles on his face, on his nose. His eyes were shaped the same way as theirs, but they were blue, human, and he had a tuft of curly red hair on the top of his head.
It sounds like
And
me. It sounds like me.
oh my goodness. Well, there you have it. But so when I looked at this thing and how scared it was, I felt like I had just terrorized a child, and I put him down. I said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. Everything's okay. I just want to know what you guys are doing here, and nobody's talking, and this one over here is lying to me." So I actually offered the little guy a cookie to calm him down. I was going to go get it. I am not kidding you. But
Now, wait a minute. So this alien with the wearing the suspenders.
mm-hmm.
What the
He looked
suspenders were? What were they holding up? Little alien Levi's or something, or what?
It was like a jumpsuit of a sort. It was
I
just
see.
a
Okay.
yeah, it was body fitting
Now,
and
do
this
you
thing
think, I mean, Heidi, do you think that it's possible that what you saw weren't really grays at all, but some other type of paranormal phenomenon just playing with your mind? I mean, do you ever think about that? I mean, is that a possibility? Because what you're describing is so far beyond anything I've ever heard. I just have to ask, you know.
I can only fool myself for so long, and I knew it was real when it happened, and it was just as real as somebody hears a noise in their house, they go to check it out. There was no way on earth that it was something else. I've dealt with ghosts. I've had angelic encounters even. This was real. This was solid. And it hadn't hit my mind. I wasn't really into the UFO topic at the time. I didn't know what I was looking at, but I now know it was an alien human hybrid that I had picked up. I had no idea what this thing was, and it was
Okay.
just yeah, it was really amazing. Afterwards, but I had no idea what I was dealing with. I was a college student. I wasn't like who. Let me see if I could sell this story. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody for the longest time because it was so odd. And how do you say I just tossed some aliens out last night to
Yeah,
anybody?
exactly. And I mean, you weren't uh, testing any type of hallucinogenic mushrooms or anything like that, right?
No, I would not have made it through school.
Yeah,
I will say that I had seen some UFOs at the time, and I just started attending this group of people who had experienced UFOs and aliens, and I had not ever been abducted or anything like that. I still haven't. But I think they tried. I don't know if it was because of association, me starting going to this group because I saw these UFOs. I thought it was neat. But I surely hadn't seen any kind of creature. But I did have black helicopters come over my place. So apparently the government knew way before I did of my connection. So it's amazing.
now, looking back, do you have any confirmation, I guess would be the word, of why you, why were these things visiting you?
I think, and this is just to be honest, and it's even when I had like these what I called holy encounters, healing encounters of the Jesus sort. I know it sounds astronomical, but it's like I have you know medical science evidence to show that I had a healing that just can't be explained. So I think that the powers that be knew what I would do with information. That's what I honestly believe. Because look at it, I put this out. It took me 2 months to write this book, The Secret War, and 4 years to find a publisher because people thought this was a crazy phenomenon. Shadow people? You're talking about shadow people being connected with aliens? What kind of loon do we have here? And then to get word out about shadow people and to have the response that I did, it was painful. It was and exhilarating all at the same time because the proof is in the numbers of people that have seen and experienced these things. I don't have to. My goal is not to go out and lay out evidence and proof to people. Hey, here you go, everybody. Let me hand it to you. I'm here to help the people and to help them find remedies to get rid of these nuisances. I didn't feel that. I didn't know I wasn't alone in the phenomenon. I really felt that I wrote this book to try to potentially tell my story to let people know this is a weird thing that's going on. I've seen ghosts, I've seen aliens, but I sure hadn't seen these things. And to have the response and people, I get letters, emails all the time. I seen a shadow person right next to an alien, and the phenomenon is unbelievable, and it's changing. The alien phenomenon, reports of abductions are going down, and the reports of shadow people and the Hat Man are through the roof. It's really changing.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that hat, man. But uh, you you've been or you've discussed this on Coast to Coast, correct? Coast to Coast AM,
Yes, I've been on there several times.
and I'm pretty sure that's where I first heard the term or the name shadow people.
Yes.
Um, and So when you did Coast to Coast AM, which probably has the largest overall audience of any uh, show, UFO paranormal
Yes.
type shows,
Mhm.
what was the response like? Did you get a flood of response?
I was floored with the response. My email kept deleting hundreds, thousands of emails probably. I could not ever catch up to them. And it was just I tried to get to them, but it was going through that fast. I could not even retain the emails. That's how many I got. And it didn't matter what part of the globe. It was so and still it's shattering to me because I didn't know it was this bad already. I knew it was going to get bad. That alien being that my friend and I had the contact with said it was going to get bad and it's going to be worse. And it's not just a possibility people will see shadow people, it's a threat. And this is the dark threat that other beings, I guess, have been dealing with for a very long time. And it's like I can't worry about what it sounds like to people. Oh, that sounds nuts. I can't worry about that
Hmm.
because there are too many people suffering at the hands of these things. They're being choked. I mean, I'm a therapist. I was at work talking. People don't always know what I do. I talked briefly about what it is I do. 20 minutes later, a shadow person, the Hat Man, approached my patient through the mirror. He was freaking out. I can't worry about what people think of it. There's too many people that need help, and I tried to lay out the answers in this book to try to reach the people that need the help. People who want to debunk and be skeptical, feel free. I really can't be concerned with it.
Right. Yeah, I totally get you. Now,
Yeah.
again, the name of the book is The Secret War, a
Yes.
true story about a real alien war and shadow people. So, and I don't want you to give away the book, but um, um, there's some type of conflict going on, or has been going on for some time between the shadow people and other ET type entities.
That's how Yeah, that's how it was kind of explained to me. The beings that, people are like, what's a connection? The praying mantis, the reptilians, the grays. What is directing them all? And I try to explain what they're connected by, and partly it's through these shadow beings. But there's also a more positive race of beings out there who's trying to wake people up to the threat, and it is a threat. And I want people to know, too, if anybody has dealt with these things or has any questions about anything out of the ordinary, I do a radio show called Heidi Hollis, the Outlander, and I try to address people's questions on air. So if they go to HeidiHollis.com, they can write me, and I'll do my best to get to everybody's email. It gets difficult because there is so much, and there's so much that needs to be done. And also, The Secret War, this new edition currently is only as an ebook. The old version is out there as a print, but that's not as up to date. This new one is illustrated, and so only in ebook form. And by the end of the month, I mean in about a month, I'll have the print version available of the new one. So I urge people, anybody that's is dealing with these things, don't allow them to rule your life. Truly, there's a way to get rid of them.
and when is your radio show on?
It's on InceptionRadioNetwork.com, and it's on every Friday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, and it's an hour and a half So I have it's really, I have a good time with these topics. I take these things more lightly, I think, than the next person, but really, it sounds like it, but I really don't, because I live and deal with these things. But they're not in my room. They're not in my apartment. They're not in my place or my space. I've learned to keep them away, but they do go after people that may be close to me. I mean, a patient, less than 12 feet from me, and gets attacked essentially. I mean, so it's an ongoing battle, but it's something that I deal with, and I try to let people know that the paranormal is more normal, and to deal with it as humanly flawed as possible. So keep your humor close, because you got to laugh sometimes at these rotten good for nothings.
And this radio show now, is it a call-in show where
It
people?
is.
Oh, well,
It is a
excellent.
call-in.
Oh,
Yes, I do. I do keep it that way. And actually, I also co-host on the Kevin Cook Show. That's on Tuesdays, and it's moving to a Chicago station, terrestrial station. So that's going to be going through the works here soon. And
excellent.
yeah, so having a good time trying to reach people in the right way in all ways. And I have a YouTube channel and whatnot. So HeidiHollis.com, they'll be able to see all that on there. But I try to make
HeidiHollis.com. Okay.
yeah, I try to make myself available, because it rips my heart out every day that I open up an email and a 2-year-old's being attacked. I mean, these things have no rules that they don't cross. It's horrible.
So
Horrible.
the stories or the reports that you get back from people are not usually, a playful poltergeist type of experience. They're usually a negative, fearful, oh my God, what's going on here type of.
Usually, but you know what? I have these interesting people who say, "Oh, not my shadow people. It's just like the alien phenomenon. Not my grays. They're not doing horrible things to me." And I'm like, "Did you invite them in?" No. Oh, so then perhaps they went against your your own rules. But just because a person isn't terrified when they see them, they think perhaps they're a guardian. And I'm like, no. But they do they get scared at some point by them being there. So it's funny to me how people try to find different ways to deal with it. But I say, if you've seen them, and this goes for aliens too, they're just as negative. They're just as horrific, because they're related. But there are other beings that you don't hear about in the movies and on TV that are more positive, that are just like, if you want a species to survive, you leave their environment alone.
Hmm.
They don't interfere. They try to give hints, but this isn't their war necessarily, but they see that we humans barely regard our own souls, while these rotten aliens could walk through walls and distort our bodies, and these shadow people jump on people and choke them. That's one of their favorite pastime things. So, yeah, they're kind of stepping up to try to drop more hints. But, it was interesting to me. I'm not a New Age person. I'm a Christian person. And it took this more positive being to tell me, you need to get more back with your faith, Heidi. So it's really odd for myself and my college roommate. It's really, really different stuff.
Well, I tell you, yeah, the book just sounds like an excellent read. Again, The Secret War, a true story about a real alien war and shadow people by Heidi Hollis. You can hear all about Heidi or read all about her on HeidiHollis.com. She has the Outlander radio show Fridays at 8 p.m. Central, correct?
Right.
And then
Yep,
you
indeed.
also co-host on the Kevin Cook radio show on Tuesdays,
Yes, at 8 p.m. as
8
well.
8
On
p.m. as well.
InceptionRadioNetwork.com. Yep.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll make sure those links are up for everybody. Heidi, we've come to the end of the show, but I just want to say thank you again. I know it was very short notice to get you on tonight, but I just what better guest, what better topic could you have for a Halloween night?
Of course,
Now, as
shadow
long
people.
as you don't send any of these things over to my house, I'll be fine. All
I
right.
won't do the sending. Just don't become a good friend of mine, because I don't know, they might go for you.
Okay. Well, with the red
Thank you.
hair and the freckle thing, there could already be some type of
Oh
mix
gosh.
up there. I don't know. I don't wear suspenders yet, but you never know.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast.
All right, Heidi. Well, thank you, and you have a great rest of the evening.
You too. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Open the door, you'll find the secret. To find the answer is to keep it. You'll believe it when you find something screaming across your mind. Green slime.
Made out of a light veneer type wood, and on this door was the shadow of some type of human being. It looked to me, and I literally let out a shriek that woke up the entire house. Um, I don't know if that's what a shadow person is, but I can tell you 50 years and I still remember it like it was yesterday. So let's just bring her on, shall we? Her name is Heidi Hollis. Heidi, are you out there, ma'am?
I sure am. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thanks for coming on with such short notice. Um, Heidi, you've written this book, The Secret War, a true story about a real alien war and shadow people. You've coined this term, uh, shadow people, I believe in back in 1997. Is that true?
Yes. Mhm.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this special Halloween edition of Topic UFO. Hope you're having a happy Halloween out there. When I was looking for a guest for tonight's show, I came across tonight's guest, and she was perfect for the show. So, last minute, I kind of reached out to her, and she was so nice to.
The different drawings of the different types of shadow people.
Oh,
Um,
I'll show
yeah.
those.
So yeah, it's HeidiHollis.com. I've got them all listed on there. So the head and shoulder shadow is a big hulking type looking mass that looks kind of like a person. Don't really see legs, but a head looks like it's directly connected to some rounded shoulders, and absolutely terrorizing to see.
I'm kind of shaking right now, just knowing that I've got some confirmation after 50 years.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so I take it you experienced this uh, sometime in your life,
Oh,
early
well,
on, or
sometime and ongoing, and yes, indeed. The first one that I'm certain that I experienced and that I actually saw following a friend of mine, that just really shook the core of me because it was broad daylight. We were walking along. I was living down in Iowa, and my friend and I were walking to her uncle's house, and we saw this,
how did
and
this start, and what is a shadow person?
well, in honesty, all honesty, 1997 was when I wrote the book, but I spoke of shadow people a few years prior to that, quite a few years actually. So it's shadow people are essentially what you spoke about. And my stomach dropped when I heard you share your story there because it's that it's that knowing that something is out of the ordinary of a shadow that gives you horror and terror that stays with you for a lifetime, that lets you know that you just saw something very dark, very evil.
Wow.
Shadow people take on various forms. So this one that you saw, I'm curious if it looked more like a person or if it looked more like the head and shoulder looking shadow people that look like they don't have a neck. So
It
I'm curious which one you saw.
it was the head and shoulders type.
Oh yeah, that's them. Yeah, that's indeed them. For people that want to see what we're talking about, my website has.
Agreed to come do the show tonight. Her name is Heidi Hollis, and she has a book entitled The Secret War, a true story about a real alien war and shadow people. She is world-renowned expert and coined the phrase or term shadow people. And I desperately want to talk to her about these shadow people because the earliest memory I have of fear, I was 5 years old, so it was almost 50 years ago. I was 5 years old. I had gotten up in the middle of the night. I'd gone into the kitchen, I think, to get a drink of water. And as I was walking back down the hallway to my bedroom, I had to pass a bathroom on my right. And the door was ajar, slightly open. And the door was